Good afternoon, class and professor. My name is Roman Luko, and I will be doing a scenario today. It's a flight presentation, and the scenario is called Flying Mother. And this is going to be for my multi-engine flight course. So this will not be a read slide by slide presentation, but there is some information that I need to make clear about the flight scenario. So the scenario is you are a private pilot with a multi-engine land rating. You have just bought a twin-engine airplane. You have asked for a checkout in the airplane. Next week, you're planning to take your family from New England area to the Midwest to visit your mother-in-law. Now, first off, I'd like to say this is a recreational trip. Things I want to point out before we get further into the scenario. I'm going to be highlighting some of the safety, aeronautical decision making, and some of the things that come in play when flying a multi-engine aircraft. Once again, it's for recreation, so there's things you have to consider that you wouldn't have to consider if you were flying by yourself, such as the passenger, weight, baggage, and also certain things you're going to go through as far as with the PAVE checklist. And we'll try to get to that in a following slide. So one of the important things I want to cover is SRM, which is single pilot resource management, and the 5 Ps checklist. Now, these are important whenever making a decision as a single pilot or just piloting in general, especially in general aviation. So one of the things we're going to go over is PAVE, so the pilot. First thing we need to consider is the pilot's experience, currency, and proficiency based on the situation. So this is a multi-engine aircraft. It's a new aircraft. Based on the scenario, we don't know how much experience the pilot has in the aircraft, but that's something we're going to have to take into consideration. So we'll just make some assumptions there. The aircraft itself, I deemed for this scenario that it's going to be a DA Diamond 40. And so I've flown that aircraft before, so I can give a little further insight into what is required with that multi-engine aircraft. The environment, basic things. When you talk about environment, you're talking about weather, terrain, nav aids, different things you need to be aware of. And external factors, we're going to be talking about, the passengers, the purpose for the flight. And then you have the 5 Ps checklist, which is going to be the plan, what we plan on doing, the plane, which kind of goes back into the aircraft portion of the PAVE checklist, pilot, passenger, and program. So we're going to be flying the Diamond DA-42, which is a light twin-engine airplane. So it's the same normal operations for any aircraft, but it does not have a MEE list. So any operations that you're going to be doing is going to be based off of Part 91205, and if there's a kinds of equipment checklist, which there is. It is approved for icing, so that's something we have to take in consideration, considering the area we're traveling from. We're going to be traveling from Massachusetts to the Midwest, which are generally cold areas the majority of the year. So you could be looking at coming into some icing, and that's, once again, it is equipped with icing, anti-icing equipment, and you can fuel it with Jet A fuel, which also has PRIS, which is an anti-icing additive. So things we got to take into consideration with this flight. We know that the pilot himself has experience, but he's only a private pilot, and it's going to be a new aircraft, and he's going to be checking in the aircraft that week. So you have to think about it this way. It's a new aircraft, and he may have flown a similar aircraft, same type and model, but it's not the exact same. And as anybody that's flown an airplane, we know that aerodynamic characteristics are almost exactly the same, but just like a car, sometimes there's little differences between each individual aircraft. Something we're going to have to take into consideration also is the weight and balance. When a multi-engine aircraft, weight and balance is very critical. It's one of those things that could not only affect the performance, but if you get a single engine situation and you're not able to get to VMCA which is minimal controllable airspeed, or even a climb. And in this aircraft, that'll be 82 knots. Then you could put yourself in a dangerous situation. So once again, they're traveling to see their mother-in-law. It's a long trip, so that baggage, that additional weight and the fuel you're going to need, it's going to come into play. Then we got to talk about the icing situation. So once again, this aircraft is equipped for moderate icing conditions. It has a weeping wing, weeping propeller, and also has cabin heat and pitot heat as well. In the area you're going to be in, flying from Massachusetts to the Midwest, like I said, it's generally cold and generally a humid, moist area. So there's probably going to be moisture in the air at higher altitudes. So it's obviously going to affect performance. And especially with a new aircraft, you want to make sure that you're familiar with the anti-ice equipment, and not only how long that anti-ice equipment is going to last, but additionally, you have to be aware of how it's going to affect the aerodynamics of the aircraft. So in this situation, let's evaluate a couple things. Once again, it's a recreational flight. It's a family thing, and family events are important, but there's also a lot of risk involved. You have minimum experience with the aircraft, very unfamiliar with the aircraft systems, and that can cause additional workload and may contribute to loss of situational awareness, which is stated in the Single Pilot Resource Management Handbook. So what you don't want to happen is a situation where you are subject to get there-itis, where it's more important to complete the trip than it actually is to follow the safety procedures. So as the pilot in command, especially in a single pilot situation, I would probably not even do this flight. It would be better to go commercial, just because you're adding undue pressure to yourself. And once again, the weather situation, let's just assume it's in the winter. Unfamiliar icing conditions, unfamiliar equipment, you have your family there. Don't make the situation more stressful than it has to be. So once again, I would recommend not completing this flight and looking at other options, or maybe visiting the mother-in-law another week if the wife's going to be okay with that. My references for this presentation have been the Airplane Flying Handbook, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, FAA Safety, Aviation Safety resource, and that is it. So once again, I hope my presentation was helpful in making your decision to fly your multi-engine aircraft, and have a great day.